We have come to the end of the questioning of John Grieve at the undercover policing inquiry. John Grieve was head of the Racial and Violent Crime Task Force at the Metropolitan Police, which was launched in 1998, partially as a response to the Stephen Lawrence inquiry. He has just been taken through a number of discrete topics. There were no further questions for him. He identified with the apology that the Commissioner has given towards the women who were deceived into sexual relationships. He said he would go further. He expressed a great regret that he had not insisted that special branch officers do the SO10 criminal undercover training course. He got quite emotional while saying that. I'm joined by Anna Pilgrim, who has been shadowing Kirsten Heron, who is one of the barristers for the non-state co-participant. What did you make of John Grieve?
It was a very interesting difference to some of the other participants that I have seen as part of my work shadowing. I think yesterday I was here for Lord Condon, who I think it almost felt like you were watching a completely different procedure yesterday, because he was very adversarial, arguing back with the KC, with David Barr, and also just sort of very defensive and not quite really in tune to the goals of the inquiry. Whereas today we had John Grieve, who just had such a deep knowledge about inquiries, the inquiry process, talked about something to do with an early stage of inquiry processes. And I thought that it's been mentioned before in these break talks, but he, refers to the chairman as sir, and is very aware of kind of helping and trying to provide as much information as possible, which is very refreshing.
Very different. His reflection on his own role in allowing not just the abuses of the undercover police, which he, just I mentioned, in terms of the training or lack of training that existed for the undercover officers, but he also referred to the lack of training for the family liaison officers, and also his own role in the institutional racism that existed within Met, which he has recognised repeatedly and got into a lot of criticism for. As you say, quite different from anything else we've heard.
Yeah, very surprisingly, I think, learned, and there's a real understanding, I think, from him, and a real effort to think through a lot of these problems. I mean, he was actually correcting the barrister that we have today on the difference between institutional and institutionalized racism, and even described something earlier about him being gone native as a neo-colonial phrase, and kind of demonstrative of the racism within the Metropolitan Police. And I thought that was so interesting, because you don't really hear vocabulary like that outside of academic or activist circles. So it was really sort of, he's clearly done a lot of reading, a lot of work, and a lot of talking to people, which was, also, I think one of the things that really struck me is the most surprising.
One of the things he was questioned about, it was something which, there is criticism that of the witness. John Grieve authorised the covert recording of meetings between himself and Dwayne Brooks and Dwayne Brooks' legal team. He justified that. He said that Dwayne Brooks was on bail, that Dwayne Brooks had been criticised by Justice Curtis, but furthermore, it was within his gift. He was allowed to covertly record people because of his rank. He said that the Investigative Powers Tribunal had looked into it and had said that it was perfectly okay for this sort of thing. It resulted in good quality evidence. He said he did regret it in retrospect, because it had damaged the relationship that existed. But I mean, just a reminder, really, I guess, for all of us, that as much as we're impressed by the humanity of, in comparison to any of the other witnesses we've had, that there are plenty of things that a Metropolitan Police Director of Intelligence thinks is perfectly okay that are appalling things, really, quite frankly.
Yeah, and I think it really speaks to kind of the oversight mechanisms that have failed, even as far as the Investigatory Powers Tribunal. One of the things that really stood out to me is that they said it was the best evidence that they could get. And I thought that was really, really interesting. It was, I mean, if he was a perfect person or a good police officer, he wouldn't be here today at the inquiry. So I think that definitely there are faults that he has made and mistakes, but I do sort of appreciate his willingness to cooperate, but B, also reflection on that. I think one of the things that really stood out to me when it came to the surveillance of lawyers, that he said in the recording of these meetings that it sounds like the behavior of a police state, which I thought was kind of one of the quotes of the inquiry in a way. I
mean, I thought that, I was going to pick up on that. I think that is I mean, that's the headline, I think, of the day. For him, the first director of intelligence for the Met to make that statement, and it's not enough off the cut statement. It was something he clearly considered at length. Really shows, I guess, how extreme the activities of Special Branch with the SDS have been, that even like senior police officers at the time think that about the way they operated. I think, he has been incredibly critical throughout his evidence today of the actions of the SDS. I was struck by at the end by how he took on board the fact partially it was his fault that so many of these things happened. He does appear to have considered it, but you do wonder if, surely he should have been aware of the reality of. I mean, he said he was aware that the Harrys, he knew them existed, but he should have had maybe a bit more of curiosity about the way in which they were gathering intelligence. I mean, we know that he saw that report, which he was incredibly critical of, the investigations into the Stephen Lawrence campaign and associated organisations document, that he had initialed it. It was clear that he'd been given it as part of a briefing by Colin Black, a briefing that he said was a robust argument, essentially. But nevertheless, he was presented with that information at the time, and he did nothing about it. It's very good to hear him kind of criticise it now, but I think he's still open to a lot of criticism for his lack of action at the time.
Yeah, and I guess some people could say that's too little, too late, right? I think that there's accountability now, which is good, but there should have been prevention when it was happening. And kind of on your point of how he should have known, I mean, he did talk about that he was very aware when it came to crime undercover officers, and he was responsible for the ethical inputs and overseeing some of that training, and was aware of some of the issues with training by junior officers and had a lack of training. And so kind of what does have to ask, why didn't that extend to some of the other information that he was getting in some of the other units? Yeah,
but that is it for John Grieve. He has now finished at the inquiry. Is there anything else you'd like to mention about him?
Yeah, just I want to. There was a great quote on Twitter that I wanted to share, and it was, "Grieve's evidence is difficult to pass, like talking to somebody who works in an abattoir and finding out they're vegan," which I thought was, I think, has been the sentiment from a lot of people here today, particularly in the public gallery, just kind of the surprise at his. I mean, someone said to me earlier, I'm surprised that he lasted in the or that he was even able to be a police officer with his own kind of personal beliefs, and now
you did mention that his mother was a defence lawyer.
Yes.
Which I think, when you kind of know that, you kind of see it a slightly different light about the way that his opinions about it. Because I mean, it should be, he had a 38-year career, a very, very successful career. He promoted a lot. But clearly, he flourished in the Metropolitan Police. He's very proud of being a Metropolitan Police officer. So I mean, I think there's more to do. I think it says a lot about the quality of the police witnesses we've had at the inquiry, that he comes across so incredibly well. It's a fairly low bar.
Yes, I agree with that.
But yeah, that is the last of him. We have another witness today. We'll be hearing from Bob Quick. You'll remember Bob has been mentioned a number of times in the questioning of John Grieve. He was mentioned yesterday with the questioning of Paul Condon. He is someone who claims that he predicted the finding of institutional racism, that he was part of that response. We heard about Meltdown Sunday earlier today, where the Met became aware that the finding of institutional racism was going to come out, and it was given a team to put together the response, to work faster to change the culture of the Met. So he'll be starting fairly soon. We should probably go in for the start of that. Thanks for joining. If everybody's liked and shared these videos, it's really useful. There's been a comment from Jack Shepherd. It was cutting out, I think, due to the internet connection being crap. Could have been guest mics though. Oh, have we got problems with the microphones? Oh, very annoying. I do apologise. I'm going to do it at this point. Thanks for joining. We'll do another video next break.